Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be taking this engine out of this Yamaha TTR-90. Last video, I tore the top end off of it and inspected it and decided not to go with this one. So there'll be more on that in the next video I do on this, but today we're going to take this out, take some parts off the motor we need, and then put the other motor in a box and keep it for parts. I paid way too much money for this motor. I'll have to look on eBay and see if I can figure it out. I think it was around 400 bucks and it just smokes. I don't know if there's something internally wrong with it to make it smoke so much. I mean, obviously it needs the cylinder honed and new rings, but the rings that it came with are just these cheap Chinese ones, and I don't want to put those in there and then it break a piston ring and then it go in the bottom end, tear the whole bottom end up, because the problem with these TTR-90s is the parts are extremely hard to find and they're expensive. So for the price of basically a piston and rings, a brand new one, you can almost get a running motor off of eBay for it. So this motor's bottom end I assume's good. The crank felt good, so we'll just keep it for parts. I have another motor for it too in my storage unit, the original motor to this bike. The cylinder was froze on the piston. And I didn't try super hard, but I couldn't get it off. So I purchased this kind of on an impulse, and it's obviously been a mistake. That was over 2 years ago, and I've finally just started working on it again. So we'll go ahead and get this pulled out. All right, so this thing, like I said before, was just kind of just thrown in here. I was moving and just trying to get everything being able to move. So all these bolts here on the motor are just finger tight, so I'll just go ahead and loosen these, pull it, pull the bolt out, save that washer. I also have some other parts for this I'll show you guys before the end of the video. So that's basically it. I think I can just pull the motor out now. These are real simple to pull out. There's like 3 bolts, so let's disconnect the wiring. It's nice and everything just comes apart so easy. I spoke too soon, I think. There we go. I think we'll put the top end back on this. I'm not going to time it or anything. I'm just going to put it back in there so it's together. I might try to sell this motor if anybody's interested. It ran, you saw in the video if you watched the other video, it runs fine. It just smokes really bad. So let me get this last connector undone. Then we'll pull the motor out. There we go. Frame's still in good shape. Oh. Well, there went the exhaust. Yeah, if you look at the end of this exhaust, it's just covered in oil. I don't think it's just rings. Like I've said before, I'm not an expert though. Could just need rings and be ready to go. See if I can just pull this frame. Yep, and it's gonna let me take it. Lift this whole thing up. No, that broke the bucket. I'm just trying to do this without spilling oil everywhere. Looks like we still got a wire connected. There's always one you forget. Always. There we go. Maybe. Yes. Perfect. I got the rear tire off because I'm putting a new tube in and a new tire. All right, let's set this up on the bench and put the top end back together. All right, so we'll go ahead and put the top end back together. This motor's just, for the amount of money, even though I got this bike for free that I put into this thing, it's just, I don't want it to drop a ring. Came with these cheap, super cheap rings from China, and these ones, I really don't feel comfortable putting these in there. They're probably perfectly fine, but if it were to break a piston ring, go down the crank and tear all that up, it's really hard to find any parts for these. And this bike has sentimental value to me, so it's really just not worth the risk at this time. I'll save this, or if you want it, you know, I'll give it to you for a decent price if you need parts. Yeah, so I looked up a Wiseco piston. It was about the only aftermarket one I could find that wasn't just Chinese no-name stuff, which there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not what I want to put in this, for 150 bucks. And that's if I hone this cylinder and the cylinder's still round. It's not been, you know, gotten super hot, is why it burnt the rings out of it. I don't know anything about this motor. Your guess is as good as mine. I think it came from like Virginia or something. Put that guide back in there. So obviously wasn't very well maintained. So go ahead and put the cylinder back on there. My plan is to give this to my son, and if I'm gonna go through all this work, I ordered a bunch of parts for it. If I'm gonna make this bike nice, I don't wanna worry about, you know, the rings breaking, even though I've never heard of that happening. I'm sure it has though. So, yeah. Didn't even have to compress those rings to get them to go on that cylinder. That's how worn out it is. Wow, that thing did not want to go back on there. It's fighting me. Cylinder on there. Put the head on there. You don't want to lose these dowel pins. They're pretty important for help lining up stuff like the head gasket. Cylinder, what's it on? That one. No. Super easy for a 4-stroke, you know. A lot of people are intimidated by putting 4 strokes together. Just take your time. It's really not that big of a deal. Sometimes those dowel pins are hard to get lined up and seated. That's why I use the rubber mallet. If I cared more about this, I would do it, you know, differently. I'm almost thinking maybe I will time it, but I don't really see a point. I'm not going to. There's the timing gear. Just gonna put this back in there. Goes in like that. There's a little groove to hold it on the cam. There's the cam gear bolt, or I had it right, cam gear bolt. Now this obviously is, if you were rebuilding this, all this would be cleaned. You wouldn't be doing it like this. I'm just not going to use this motor, so I'm just putting it back together to try to keep the parts semi-organized. Here's the cam chain tensioner bolt. Go ahead and just put that in there. Then it has these copper washers on every head stud. Then here's the head nuts. Put these on here. Hopefully the lighting's all right for you guys on this video. Yeah, it's just really unfortunate that this motor's just, I'm sure it's fine. You guys will see in the next video why I didn't go with it. Everything will make a lot more sense. Sucks because Hondas, there's just gobs of different style of motors you can get. 110s, 140s, 190s, 212s. And they really just do not make much for Yamaha. But I don't know, I'm curious to see how this is compared to like a Honda XR100. When I was a kid, that was my favorite bike I had. Been looking at getting another one, but they've just gone way, way, way up in price. They're just not worth, you know, what people are asking for them. They're selling them for what I sold for, and you know, when I was a kid, they're selling for the same price, which is crazy. Let's see, I think that's an 8mm. So these are 8mm. I'm not really going to torque any of these down. I'm just going to, you know, just a little bit so it doesn't fall out. Snug these down a little bit. Perfect. That one's stripped out, so don't really want to tighten it down anyways. There's a top end back on it. So I need to pull this kickstart off and this shift lever. Start with the shift lever. It's a 10mm. Just break it loose first, and then Pretty windy out there today. I don't know if you can hear it. Cool. We'll be using this for the next motor. Okay, we'll take the Kickstarter off. I need that too. There we go. Those bolts came off pretty easily. We're going to take the skid plate off the bottom too. It's kind of beat up. I don't know if we'll be able to reuse it, but I don't want to break any of those connectors. I'm going to go ahead and break these loose with the ratchet if I can fit it in there. It's kind of tight. To look on another one and see. Yeah, look at all that oil under there. Oil everywhere. Well, that's what you get for being impulsive on eBay. Okay. Yeah, that rag that was in the intake is just full of oil. Or over the where the cylinder was. Let me grab a rag and wipe my hands off. All right, well, this is savable, so we'll keep that. So these parts will get cleaned up. I'll spray this skid plate off with some brake parts cleaner, and I'm not gonna paint it. I might try to dip it in that bucket of cleaner I have to see how it does, but it's pretty filthy. All right, guys, thanks for watching.